What up, podheads? Welcome to the Podio Slave podcast. I'm here with, well, kind of like last week, just Tone. You know?
Hey, man, it's me.
Yeah.
It's Tone. It's Anthony. Oh no, Anthony's not here. It's just Nate and Tone again. Maybe.
Again.
Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sorry, guys.
Oh.
I was on mute. I was on mute the whole last episode.
Last week too.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, shit, man. You guys pivoted to the biopics. Yeah.
Did you
Damn.
have any biopics for us that we missed?
No, that's why I stayed on mute.
Oh, smart. Yeah. Yeah, that was in real time, as Nate would say, drink. We came up with that literally within, like, I don't know, 15 minutes of getting the Zoom going. So
Letting the secrets out.
I mean, I think it came out pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed the conversation. So, Twan, how do we do without you?
It was good. It was good. No, it was good.
It was okay.
It was
Good, not great.
You're terrible.
No, I really liked it. I mean, I listened through it, obviously, before we put it out, and I enjoyed it. I was hoping, Nate, in your last one who was your last one?
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. I thought you were going to say Zach De La Rocha, because that would have been badass with the Inside Out and Hard Stands Come Up. I thought that's where you're going. You disappointed me, but if we
So what
do
you're
round
saying
two,
is-
I can do it.
Yeah. Save that
yeah.
one for round two.
Well, here's I'm happy you brought that up, but there is one thing to go to that, which is the Alice in Chains choice was supposed to be like a 90s kind of scene kind of thing. So De La Rocha, Rage Against the Machine would have fallen into that bucket, but at the same point,
that's a big ass movie.
That's
That's a reach, man. You're reaching. You're trying to
Nate
satisfy
and
me.
his 90s OG cinematic universe over here.
yeah. Well, that's why it's a HBO 7-year series, right? It captures everything.
That would work. I would watch that too. I'm not gonna lie.
Then it really wouldn't be focused around Alice in Chains at all. It would just be straight up 1990s music.
All right, stop giving HBO ideas.
I know.
So you were just going to do Planet Earth music.
Head PE.
We
one
can
episode.
do Head Planet Earth.
And you know what? I'm not going to bring this up ever again, but I'm going to pull a Nate and say, I lost my perfect attendance award. I feel bad about missing an episode. But that's the only time I'm going to bring it up. That's it.
That just leaves me. I'm the only one that hasn't missed any time. But I mean, I'm also without kids, so it's a little easier for me to get here every week than it is you guys right now.
That's true. I know. I was like pulling my own Band-Aid off like many times, just kind of dragging it mainly because I really was bummed that I wasn't here, but it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, we're still talking about it? We're still talking
Here we are. I'm going back on mute, guys.
Yeah. All right. See you, Twan.
I'll see you next week. Episode 120.
Oh, man. Yeah. So we are back. The three of us are back. We're here to nerdify your ears one more time. And then, we'll see if we like it and if we want to do it again next week.
All right. I'm back. What's also back is live music, which you guys, remember we did the whole predictions episode? I was the live music naysayer and said live music ain't coming back. You guys were like, it's back, and you guys were right. I'll give you your flowers there. But I think we all checked out music, right? This last week?
We did. This is about a week after we've all checked some stuff out that you're hearing this. I think, Twan, what did you see? You saw Bon Iver?
Yep, Bon Iver at Thompson's Point, Portland, Maine. Honestly, top 5 venue. I've only been to 2 shows there. It's
so good.
Nice.
It's on the water. It's on the Fore River in Portland, Maine. It's like this little peninsula that's surrounded by water on, 2 of the sides, I guess. It's just, if it's a good night weather-wise, it's just amazing. There's food trucks, there's beer tents. For this show, the weather was absolutely perfect. Justin Vernon, he's a guy that I would think would be only good in theaters or only good in that's, maybe 2,500, 3,000 cap, but no. He was amazing. He was, I was telling my wife, I was like, he's a generational talent. He transcends genres. Before the set, I was like, are we going to get any Taylor Swift stuff? Are we going to get some Kanye stuff? What are we going to get? But it was all him. And he did basically something from every era of the band. And I love the Pharrema album probably the most. And he played Regarding Stacks, which is my single favorite song of his and one of my favorite album closers. We'll save that for another episode. But overall, perfect night. You couldn't have asked for a better night. And I mean, what a soundtrack to be on the water in Maine in the summer, sun setting, crowds singing along, just perfection, worth every penny.
Such a good venue, and I've probably seen 5 or 6, 7 shows there now at this point, and it's just you described it to a T. If the weather is good, you've got the food trucks, you've got the sun going down over the river, the sky is just gorgeous, and it's just a great spot, a great vibe for really anything that wants to be there musically. And Bon Iver, I would say, would be perfect for this venue. So I'm jealous that you got to go, because I had tickets to this show when it was supposed to be in 2020.
That's true.
And my sister-in-law bought them for myself and my wife, at the time my girlfriend, my fiance actually, and we were gonna go for her birthday. And the show, obviously, COVID happened and got postponed, got canceled, so we got our money back, and then was re-announced for this summer. And it sold out quick. I didn't have a chance to get tickets to it, but I saw some stuff that night too, so it worked out for me. But yeah, man, great venue. Nate, you've seen it. It's a great venue. It's an awesome spot.
Great venue. I mean, I checked it out last year with you guys, kind of like the first Patio Slave reunion concert event to see 311. We had Peanut on, obviously, so it was cool to see him on stage and rocking out. And I agree. It's like, I'm over here in California now, so, I know it's one thing to be biased if you're in the state and you say, hey, State Theater's the best theater in the whole country, but I actually attest to that. And then that venue was my first time being there, and I fucking loved it. And I just remember thinking, like, it's about time. And also, it's still so young that this venue has so much room for growth, whether it's, some stadium seating or different sections. But I kind of like those beginning stages because it's like Meadowbrook circa like 2001, where it's just an open field and there's no, VIP section. It's just like, hey, this is the setup, and it's great. So that phase of any new venue is perfect because it's equal opportunity. You don't have to pay extra to get a better seat. You just have to walk up. If you have the balls to push through, you can get the best seat in the crowd and be rail, it's right in the front. But Bon Iver at a place like that too, like, holy shit. I saw him out here in LA at the YouTube Theater, but that's like a state-of-the-art corporate fucking SoCal venue. I'd rather see him at Thompson's Point any day. So that's rad, man. And I did see the set list. He played everything I would want to see. And like you said, Stax, and then you get Perth and you get Holocene. Like, just those 3 songs alone is
Perth.
worth the ticket price,
Played Blood Bank, which is haunting. Just a beautiful song.
You're right. He's a great voice.
I thought of you, Nate, when I was there. Like, literally, I thought of you, which is, kind of a weird way to open this up.
No, that's cool.
I thought of you because I'm like, this is like a typical Tuesday night for Nate outside venue in SoCal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Getting an act like Bon Iver, yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, easier said than done, they're always in my phone calendar. That doesn't mean I'm actually there, but yes, I know what you mean.
But Southern California gets them, whereas Maine is like,
you get the weather.
Yeah.
It's just, you spoiled prick.
I know this happens in the group text a lot. We're like, yeah, cool, Nate, you get that coming, hopefully we get this one thing in July.
Oh, we got a cover band? All right, cool.
If it's any consolation, the Sunshine Tax, like, I'm actually paying for those shows even if I don't go to them.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, that is true.
Or you can be like me and do that same thing, which is a perfect segue into Tone's show. Right?
Oh, man. Yeah, so I had a couple shows. I went to... this is Tuesday, so we're recording almost a week ago now, and I saw Frank Turner last night and Spose Saturday night and Friday night. So also... Patio Slave podcast guests, correct?
Alums.
Yeah, Spose is a friend of the pod. I mean, we tweet back and forth. He's our boy. He was on episode 29 and episode 82 and 83. And if you want to hear about Spose and his come up, that's 29. If you want to hear about his new album that he put out last year and then us ranking Kanye stuff, that's 82 and 83. So go peep those. And then Frank Turner, who we had on episode 59. I'll start with Spose because I went to those 2 shows Friday night, Saturday night. Tiny little venue in Portland, Maine called Suntiki Studios. It used to be a tanning salon, right, on Forest Ave, which is like coming out of the city, and holds maybe 120 people. Both sold out. He Friday night did his record The Audacity in its entirety with Cam Groves, and that was cool because there was some stuff on there he probably had never played. There was some stuff on there that he wrote fast rappy that he hasn't been able, or he can do still but doesn't do a lot of live to that level. Like, you're not going to do 6 songs in a row like that, but he had 5 or 6 songs in a row on the record like that. So that was fun to hear him pull that off, because he did. And then hearing Cam Groves do his stuff was cool. And then Saturday night, he had like a bunch of people from the record that he just put out last fall come through and play with him. Crucify Aiden, who's a guitar dude from Maine, he's a stud. Like he opened and played so much awesome guitar riff solo stuff. I was like, this is badass at a rap show. I'm into this. Like, we're a rock pod too, so love that stuff. And then he had people come through that were on the record and did some songs with him. And man, just an all around great weekend with those two. And then Frank Turner last night was an absolute fucking gem. I texted you guys after the show, top 10 show for me. I was like, Aura's the best fucking venue ever. I love that fucking tiny little venue. We love the State Theater too, don't get me wrong, but it's a little smaller. It's a little newer. The sound is perfect in there. And then I found that spot. If you go back and check our socials, I'm like right behind the soundboard, looking directly at the stage, and the person in front of me had to be 4'10". It was perfect. I was like, I could see everything. So I got a bunch of videos, a bunch of pictures. Go peep our socials from last week. There's an awesome couple of videos of songs from that night, and man, just a blast. It was cool to go to 3 shows in 4 days.
I'm gonna chime in real quick. Where you were at Aura, think of like, in a literal sense, where that would be in any other venue. You'd be floating like in the air, 25, 30 feet from the venue. It just doesn't happen. The layout of that venue allows that to happen, and it's elevated. It's just a unique experience, and I had a ticket to that show and couldn't make it. So
yeah, sorry, twist the knife with that social media post. I apologize.
Yeah. Take it down, dude.
Well, likewise with the Bon Iver, right? Because you were supposed to go to Bon Iver Tone, so you guys
so we're even. We're even.
Yeah, you're even. It's a break-even analysis.
Oh, and the other thing is, so I get home and I had a good time. I watched the end of the Celtics. They lose, whatever. I'm a little upset. Had a beer, but I'm like, I'm just gonna email Frank these photos that I took because they're fucking perfect and they're right straight on. And he fucking answered me the next day. So like, that guy is awesome. He's just an awesome fucking musician. Gets that his fans give a shit, and he's into that, and knows how to fucking play a crowd, and is approachable and accessible too.
Yeah, that feedback loop is very much alive and breathing. I mean, you were at the show, we had him on the podcast, you still went to the show, you still paid for the show, and then we still get the correspondence even after the fact. So I feel like this podcast has paid dividends with just that alone.
Yep.
But the Asylum, which is now, what is it called? Aura?
Aura, yep.
That's a great mention because I've only been there once since the renovation, but I remember loving the Asylum and being bummed when I moved to SoCal and thinking, why they're renovating it for the millionth time. Like, they've always done little updates here and there, but they actually full on updated it where when you're in that venue, you feel like you're in a different city. It doesn't feel like a Portland venue, mainly because the Portland venues feel like, they're just original architecture. That venue, they looked at like a blueprint from like New York City or a major market, and I said, hey, let's really step it up. Let's be the best venue in the state. And I love the State Theater, but that's probably the most state-of-the-art venue, and that elevated stadium seating is a big part of that because you don't have a bad seat. You were lucky, Tone, like you said, you had someone that was 4'2" in front of you, but even if that wasn't the case, I think you probably maybe would have been fine either way. But that is a cheat code. Being behind the soundboard is, you get the geek moment where you get to see the industry happen in real time, but also it happens to be the best spot to see the show. So anyone that doesn't know that
sound is so good, and
it's a great spot. Yeah, I mean,
Twan is another cheat code for us. He texted to us last night.
So like, I'm not the tallest dude. I'm not a short dude. I'm like 5'9", 5'10", right in there. And I've always thought about doing this, and maybe this is like a common thing. The heel raisers. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
Is that what the name? What
something like, yeah. It's just something you're gonna toss in your shoe,
insoles.
Right?
Yeah. Like, you can get them on Amazon. I've been thinking about getting those for shows. You can add, it says, I've looked them up, 2 to 4 inches. I mean, 2 to 4 inches. I'm now the tall dick that's standing in front of the people behind me, And
as you said last night, who couldn't take 2 to 4 more inches, right? Yeah.
Oh man, the nerd in me is looking back at old East Bay magazines and thinking, why didn't I buy strength shoes?
Those shoes that you're up on your tippy toes and they've got those little platforms. Fuck
the springs. Should have bought those in the 90s. Fuck.
What's the actual name of those?
Strength shoes.
Was that what they were called?
I'm 98% sure.
I believe you.
I wanted those because they like touted, the like.
They would make you
massive
jump. They would add to your vertical, right? That's what it was.
And I was a big I love to like try to dunk. Yeah, you're right. Strength shoes. That's the actual brand name.
Twan did love to dunk. I've seen slow-mo videos of him trying to dunk.
Trying is emphasis on the trying.
You might say he midnight dunks.
You might. Which is a reference to dunking a basketball and not Dunkin' Donuts, like people
Right.
think.
It does feel like a yeah. We'll leave that alone.
Dunkin' Midnight. They came out with that coffee to fuck me over.
Oh, man.
Yeah, those assholes. I always joked in college. Now we're off the rails, guys. I always joked in college that I should have bought stock in Dunks because they were regional at the time, and they ended up being a national chain. But man, if I had bought back in 2004 when I was there every morning on my way to school, when they were better too, yeah, I should have bought stock.
Last thing I'll say is look at the show notes. There's going to be a GoFundMe link to get Nate strength shoes. So
Yeah, please
donate
do.
what you can. We'll take it.
Please.
Speaking of Nate, who did you see, Nate? You saw somebody too.
I saw some. Yeah, we all saw gigs, man. We're back. This podcast is pay to play. We pay so we have shit to talk about. So we're
Industry
losing money
name.
hand over fist. We don't make any money. We lose money quarterly.
Hey, go ahead and click on that help this podcast out part at the bottom of the show notes,
Yeah.
please.
We just want to break
take
even.
a penny, $1, whatever.
We just want to break even, please. Anyways, yeah, I saw 2 gigs. I saw Spoon, which was in my year so far records to check out. They played Belly Up in Solana Beach, small club, 600 cap, small tiny club. Talk about it all the time on here. It's a really special place for me, and it's local to where I live. They killed it, man. I haven't seen them since they opened for Weezer in the Fray back in 2005, I think. It's a long time ago.
Back in Lewiston, right?
Yeah, in Lewiston. Great fucking show. They killed it the whole time, and I guess it's one of those bands I think we talked about it in another episode, like you kind of forgot about maybe, and then they came around with this new record, and the new record's fantastic, and then you see them live, and you're like, oh, well, they're actually like a really tight live band too, so that only helps their cause, and it seems like, it's a speculation that maybe they've just been practicing like crazy behind the scenes because they nailed it. They sounded like the records, really good, and it's just a small place to see that band because the other venues on that tour were more theater size. This was the only show on that tour that I can think of off, top of my head that was a small club setting and worth every penny. I'd recommend anyone checking out that tour and that record for that matter. Cool to see bands like that still kicking it. I saw another show as well at a venue called Humphreys, which similar to what you were saying, Twan, is an outdoor venue on the water called Humphreys by the Bay. One of my favorite venues in San Diego. It's right by the marina. And it was Amos Lee, who's a fantastic singer-songwriter, kind of folky, really, really good, really, really amazing artist. I've seen him a ton, but he rolled through here, and I surprised my wife. I'm like, hey, let's go check this out, and let's bring our son for the first time, his first show. So we got him we got him like these headphones to protect his ears, but he's been listening to music this whole time, so he's down.
Yeah, he's been in production meetings before for us too.
Yeah, exactly. He sound checked and everything. I think Amos Lee is between Amos Lee and Frank Turner and Bon Iver and Spoon and Spose. Like, it really shows that we walk the walk. Like, we actually do check out the shows. We don't just like pretend like we like this music. We actually go see it. So
hell yeah.
So we're not posers, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Although Poser was a good band too.
No, we're not posers. You're right. We pay to play, but we pay to play because we love to go to that stuff. Like, we would have probably, if we weren't talking about it tonight, we probably would have gone to them anyway. So, yeah. Man, I'm jealous of, like Amos Lee would be a perfect Thompson's Point show for us.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah, I could see that happening in the near future. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But yeah, we do love it. We love the live music, and we're happy that, this time of year, especially, everybody can be outside for a lot of things. It's great, but we'll I think we got a few more things coming up this summer that we're gonna do. Hopefully, live as fans and live maybe podcast too. All right, main segment time. We are going to talk about the one and only Green Day. When we mentioned Green Day as a biopic pick for us last week, it was because they were top of mind for me, and we were going to do an episode on them last week if it was going to be the three of us. So here it is. This is the episode we were going to do last week, and we're gonna get into some Green Day love and some Green Day, maybe a little bit of what were they thinking, all that kind of stuff. Just kind of examine what Green Day has been for the last 30 years, because still a band, but been around for a long time.
And that's actually a good way to put it, because you have the Green Day truthers that respect every part of the legacy. Then there's a camp that, just based on maybe the path they've taken, have rejected everything. You know, you see it's so polarizing. You see, I mean, we're in like punk hardcore of the 90s groups that shun any Green Day mention. It's like, well, hold on a second. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. And then there's, you know, the folks that love everything from Dookie all the way to Revolution Radio and
what was Uno Dos Tre.
Yeah, Father of All Motherfuckers, the most recent one.
Yep.
So we're gonna really dig into that. Like, what's their legacy? How important are they? Because there's just so much competing and polarizing opinions on it. So what's a good starting point? Like, where do we start with Green Day?
Where do we start with them? And I would point you towards episode 3. They were one of the first records I talked about that night. Was one of the first records I've ever owned, Dookie. And I went backwards from there as a kid. Jumped into Kerplunk, jumped into 1039 or 39 Smooth, right? That's what it was.
Yep.
And then, went from there and just, Insomniac dropped, kept going. Like, was a fan, really paid attention very closely to them until probably after American Idiot. So, 10, 12 years of just loving every little bit of the band. Not hating stuff that came out after that, but not paying as close attention. But Dookie is where it all started for me. I'm sure it's probably similar for you guys. And they're a band that they were massive at that time and kind of pointed you in a couple different directions. Like, here, you can go a little more heavier punk stuff if you want to, or you can kind of stay in the pop punk realm and live in this world too. And it wouldn't have mattered, it wouldn't have hurt for you to be in any of those spots with Green Day and then finding other things from that.
Yeah, for me it was 94 too for Dookie, but my uncle gave me Kerplunk when I was like 8 years old. But I don't even think I had a CD player. He like gave it to me with a stack of CDs, and I was like, sweet. But it wasn't until like 94 that I had Dookie. I'm like, I know this name, and then looked at my closet and dug out the Kerplunk album. I was like, nice. And now I actually have a boombox, as we used to call it, to put that in and kind of revisit an old present. But it's one of those bands where like it's multi-generational. Like my uncle, who's in his 60s, gave me that CD, and here I am getting into the band in 94 and watching them on MTV. So he was into them before I was. So it just shows that their legacy is multi-generational, and for that matter, spanned many different styles and sellout, non-sellout, punk scene, major, mainstream, all you want to call it. So it's a pretty interesting band, and one that is worth a deep dive.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. It was 94. It was Dookie era. It was the basket case video. And we recapped this, I think, in that same episode, Tone, where I saw the basket case video. I remember I was in my living room with my dad, and he was like, I've never seen guitar played that fast. And in hindsight, it really wasn't even that fast. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like Billy Joe he was on one in that video, and probably literally on one.
Yeah.
But it was just new. I mean, when did that album come out? Like what month in 94?
April?
So I'm like 8, I'm like, so that's obviously new to me. And it's funny. Like when I think about the question maybe that we're trying to answer with this episode, which is like, what's their legacy, how important they are, I go back and forth, but I think I kind of default to like very important, because that was the start of something very, very new. Like we talk often about Beavis and Butthead and the metal stuff, but I didn't explore that. You know what I mean? I never pursued that back then. With Green Day, yeah, I pursued that. You know what I mean? It was like, all right, well, this is a little more approachable, a little more accessible. And you hear about like the whole Lookout Records and Operation Ivy, you know what I mean? And that was something that was a little more approachable and achievable than like fucking Crowbar at 10. I don't even know what that is. You know what I mean?
Right. True. February 1st, 1994 is when Dookie came out.
Oh, wow. Winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a record for, I was 9, going to be 10 that summer, and it was a record that you're starting to pay attention to, MTV maybe, or Beavis and Butthead, or then the radio. I think our rock radio station didn't that start in the summer of 94? Yeah, or 95.
Yep.
So they get a lot of play there. I'm 11 years old, and Longview is a song that hits the radio, and it's probably about masturbation, and you're like 11 thinking it's the funniest thing ever. Obviously, as a 30 whatever year old now, I'm like,
I guess
smart for them to do that, to get the kids chuckling. But now I'm like, all right, cool. But the song still kicks ass. It's a great bass line, and I could listen to it today and be like, yeah, man, I see where this is popular, why this would be popular at that time. When I Come Around, fucking massive song. Basket Case, massive song. They put out hit after hit in this time frame, and we're all over MTV and rock radio because of it. So they were, very much the culture at that point, and it makes total sense that we would have been impressionable at that age.
Yeah, like you said, 94, 95, like I think it's equally across all three of us. Maybe that's the year that we really started to pay attention. And that record in particular, like the album cover is like basically like a Where's Waldo type illustration, right? So it's like, it's very approachable. It's not like some obscure record cover or boring record cover. It looks like an old comic. You're like, all right, I'm already interested in that. You flip it to the other side, there's Elmo on someone's shoulders. You're like, what the hell is this shit?
Ernie. It's Ernie, isn't it?
It's Ernie.
Yeah, it's Ernie.
Yeah, Elmo is Greg from Zebrahead.
Yeah.
But so approachable on multiple levels, on top of the fact that it was kind of, on TV and on the radio, and, perfectly placed. The placement was quintessential for us to pay attention and kind of go from there. So I think Dookie's a great starting point, mainly because, well, that was their breakthrough record, at least on the mainstream. But for us and the, perfect consumer alignment, we were, there from inception, if you really count that as the starting point, and you discount everything that came up beforehand. But with that said, what does that legacy beforehand mean? They were a true punk band from the Bay Area.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's funny. You can't see it, but Tony has the Green Day Dookie poster in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Paying respect 30 years later.
Yeah, 24 by 36 framed. My wife got it for me for my birthday. It's an original from like 94. It's so awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, and I don't think you can discount that. And I think a lot of people just, time hasn't been, like in the aggregate, hasn't been favorable to them. And I was reading up online a little bit, and there's a school of thought that's like, well, if Green Day didn't happen, the whole punk 90s punk thing, mainstream thing still would have happened, because you had Offspring who repped Nitro, you had Rancid repping Epitaph. I disagree. Smash was a smash. Rancid, Out Come the Wolves was a smash, but it wasn't Dookie, and it wasn't, I don't know, again, it could have been age, but I wasn't exploring like their Offspring's history and Rancid's history and their record labels and where they came up and regionally. It just was it was different. I think Green Day had more tentacles. Like it just, like you said, rock radio. Like I think Offspring certainly was, Rancid was, but not mainstream like Green Day.
No, there weren't a ton of, Come Out and Play and Self-Esteem had videos from Smash, but they weren't. If there was a TRL at that time, Basket Case is number 2, and maybe Come Out and Play hits number 10. Maybe they're on the fringe. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is no knock to Offspring. We love that record too, but it was a different beast. Green Day was a different beast.
So what do you think? Like, would it have happened, Nate? Like, do you think the punk explosion of the 90s would have happened if Dookie didn't exist?
Yes and no. I think it wouldn't have happened in that sense. I think the timing is just immaculate, and I think the record label knew that. When you have someone like that band, like even optics-wise, like you have Billy Joe, who's like a full-on punk rocker.
It's a great point.
But everyone was dyeing their hair blonde at that time. They saw him. It was like almost like they needed someone to spearhead this movement, and Green Day was a perfect picture. Like you weren't looking at Dexter Holland. You weren't looking at, Tim Armstrong. You're looking at Billy Joe Armstrong, who was influenced by Tim Armstrong, which is interesting,
Wait, are you saying that Eminem's blonde hair came from Green Day? Because I mean,
Yeah,
he would have
it
been
happened before.
influenced at that point.
A different generation, right? It's like the second coming with Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
But 94, I feel like there's, certain years that are, it's switching over to a different style of music or a different wave that is not quite a new decade, but it's somewhere in between. So 94 is like that perfect year where like grunge is starting to taper off a little bit because they kind of had their heyday between 1990 and 92. So 93 is an in-between year, and then 94 is like a brand new thing. And Green Day just happened to land at that exact point. So to answer your question, yes and no. And then yes, because they were approachable enough. And then no, because there was, like you said, there were so many other bands in the punk rock scene, but didn't capture that kind of relatability that Green Day was able to capture, similar to our legacy with Blink-182, which is, songs that you probably wrote down in your diary, but they actually made songs out of them. And you're like, oh, I can relate to this, whether it's, autobiography or not. Like it's subject matter that's, conducive to my life and pretty much anyone in that same realm. So I'd say no, because Green Day is, it's hard to look back and say it with clear eyes, but otherwise they are a staple to that generation and to our generation in the 90s. Without Green Day, it would be a different scene.
Yeah, and I think you're saying that Green Day was influential enough to enough people at this point to push them into those other areas. And anybody that tells you, anybody that's a punk fan or found other punk music, around this time or a little later, if they told you they didn't like Dookie, they're lying to you.
Agreed. That's, yeah.
So many people do that, though, right? They will lie to you. They'll shit on Green Day because they've done other things since. They're full of shit. I completely agree with you. So we embrace it here. We love them. But man, if they're gonna tell you that, this isn't real punk, okay, fine. This was mainstream, certainly, but it probably got you into some of the shit you love today that may be a little bit more underground or a little bit more, hardcore punk or whatever. I think a lot of bands owe the debt to Green Day.
You know what? The more we talk about this, the more I think we do need that biopic, because, and maybe this is a well-known story and I just don't know it, but I don't know. I'd love to know like that transition from Kerplunk, the Lookout days, to Reprise. Like, how did that happen? Like, you can't fault Green Day for that. Like, obviously they're going to take that plunge. Like, this is context. I always say context is key. It's early 90s. Like, you've kind of outgrown the Bay Area scene, right? You're going to take that leap, and man, they nailed it. But you can't discount one, where they came from, and you can't fault them for taking that leap.
Right. Yep. Well, and those first two records, the 39 Smooth and then Kerplunk, there's a clear like maturity through them from the start to get to Dookie. And there are songs on 39 Smooth that are written by 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds, and they fit that. And then there are songs on Kerplunk that they end up, putting on Dookie, like Welcome to Paradise.
Yep.
Because of how more grown up that song is, and a little bit more like I'm finding myself, and I'm not that 15-year-old anymore. I'm now, 19 or 20, and I'm a little more of an adult. I have a little more of an adult headspace. So you can feel them grow through that too, to get to the point where you're going to put out this major label record that, millions of people are going to own, and, people like me are going to have the poster on the wall still in 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, also, like, when you think about, you try to get into their shoes, it's not like, especially coming from those two Lookout records, it's not like they get a major label contract with Reprise and they're like, okay, let's just write hits now. Like, it's not how it works. Like, you're still writing music for the sake of writing music. You still came from that scene. You don't just like discount that and all of a sudden you're like, you came from like the outskirts of the Bay Area and now you own a mansion in San Francisco proper. Like, no, like they are straight up, punk rockers from the scene. So the record just happened to be well received and the songs are well written, but that doesn't mean there was some like, different formula. I feel like, and I think Welcome to Paradise definitely highlights that it's a carryover from the record beforehand. So it couldn't be really more organic than that. And additionally, like, it's not like they were like visually appealing. Like, they looked like Billy Joe still has crooked teeth.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what do you want from them? Mainstream or not, like, it just happened to cross over. And at the end of the day, you have to also think, and I think we're older now, so we can appreciate this now more than ever, which is, you know, you have to make a living at the end of the day, you know? Yeah. So, like, do you want to sign a contract, or do you want to play 200 cap rooms and, like, you know, share driving duties to the next stop? Like, eventually, like, if you can make a living out of it and still do what you love and actually write from the heart, like, I think they've done that. And I think that's, you know, Dookie in a nutshell.
And what you just said is, like, it kind of goes where my head is. It's like, well, how else would this have played out? Or how else could this have played out? I mean, think about, at what point in their trajectory were they a stadium band? Like, was it American Idiot, or was it before? Like, at what point were they selling out 10,000 cap venues?
Man, it's probably around American Idiot, honestly. And they probably could have done it in the Dookie time frame, but it wouldn't have been for very long. Because then, like, Insomniac comes out, we all ride for Insomniac. We all might even, you know, gun to head tell you we like Insomniac better as far as music goes. But then you get Nimrod, then you get Warning, and I love pieces of both of those records, but they started to tail off, right? They started to not be as popular as they were at the height of the Dookie Insomniac, and even into Nimrod. They probably hit that stadium peak with American Idiot and the tours for that.
Huh. Well, like, the reason I bring all that up is you hit this massive commercial success with Dookie. You follow it up clearly trying to almost go back to your roots. Like, Insomniac is louder, more aggressive. Nimrod leans into, you know, senior year song with Time of Your Life. And then Warning is more of like a pop record, right?
Yep.
And then they go full whatever with American Idiot. And I'll be frank, beyond American Idiot, I couldn't really tell you much about, but I will defend them. I'm a Green Day truther. There's no other direction. What do you come, like, here's the reality. You put out American Idiot in 2004. What do you come back with another Insomniac? Everyone will be like, well, that's forced. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're trying to relive the past. There's no other direction they could have been in. And that's why, like, when I think about their legacy, it's like, well, it's a very important legacy, especially if you're a millennial and maybe I don't know, if you're between the ages of what, like 35 to 45.
Yeah.
Yep. If you don't recognize their importance, I think you're a fraud.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, I think you're trying to be, you know, a little too cool for school.
And you don't even have to like the direction that American Idiot took them. But if you like music, American Idiot is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great record. Do I come back to it all the time? No. I probably would rather put Dookie on if I had to pick, or Insomniac on if I had to pick. But there are songs on American Idiot, and there are moments on American Idiot that not many punk bands or pop punk bands from their generation or ilk could ever pull off. And the fact that they pulled them off, you know, Jesus of Suburbia, Holiday, they went a little politically charged with some stuff, which, hey, at the time it made sense. And there's always going to be that, especially with punk. And they lean into that, but they, like, did it on this grandiose scale that I'm not sure a lot of bands could do. And they pulled it off, and obviously were massive again, you know, 10 years after Dookie.
Yeah, I think there was almost like a band meeting or kind of sit down between band and management, or maybe just band. Like, you know, what are we going to do here? Are we going to be Korn and just write the same record every year and stay true to our roots, in air quotes? But does that really work? Does that work for the fan? Does it work for the band? Are you really being truthful in what you're writing about? You have to grow up, right? Like, I love Insomniac, probably my favorite record, but am I 16? No, right? I'm in my late 30s. So something like American Idiot going forward makes sense. If I was in the band, I would be like, hey, this is probably the direction we want to go. So we're at least writing something that is, you know, happening, rather than something that I'm literally digging through shoeboxes with old notes. Like, oh, I guess I could write this because it reflects what, you know, sold records. But, you know, we all see through that. So it doesn't really work. So I think they made the right choice. And it's weird saying it now, because I remember with American Idiot, I was initially kind of disappointed, but then I, you know, gave the record some time and saw them live and realized, okay, this is just a different phase of the band, and was a very conscious choice. I mean, like literally they wore like, you know, almost like a stage setup outfit. Everything was like mirrored to like this new style and phase of the band. So it was very conscious, right? It wasn't just like, oh, let's try this out. Like it was like, hey, this is us now. Coming from Warning, especially because Warning was basically optics and everything looked like Dookie. It looked like everything looked the same. So yeah, I think it's very respectable. To your point, Twan, I think it was, you know, what are you supposed to do? I think this is a good choice, even though at the time I was kind of anti.
You were anti? Really?
I think I was, just because I was such a truther for that punk scene, because I was still pretty young. I was like, hey, you could keep doing the Dookie thing, but realistically,
I
wasn't.
They'd already kind of gone away from that with Warning.
With Warning,
Warning wasn't, and a lot of people don't like Warning, and I think the song Warning has some of the best lyrical content that Billy Joe has ever written. If you go listen to that, but it's that song especially, but it's them dropping off as far as popularity goes. So I can see why you'd be like, give me more of that, and not wanting them to do this next not logical step, because a rock opera is not logical, but it worked for them. It certainly worked.
I think you both touched upon something that's important, which is in that American Idiot era, that album is very produced. It's very polished. The optics of the band is very much like, we're going to wear ties now. We're going to do eyeliner. But I'll say this, and this is where I'm going to dig my heels in and defend Green Day. They got sued by Dillinger 4, tried and true punk band, for the riff on American Idiot.
Wow.
The song Double Whiskey, Coke, No Ice. And it's like that same crowd that now rejects them is now offended that they took, you know, the same riff from a tried and true punk band that's still a punk band. You know what I mean? So it's just like, if you kind of see past the optics in the production, I think the spirit's still there.
Yeah, I agree. Nate, we saw them twice, and we've talked about this numerous times on that American Idiot tour, and it lends itself to, they were definitely polished and doing the same thing, because we saw the same show in two different venues. And we've complained about that as fans of music and live music in the past, but it fit for what they were doing with this record. They probably had a plan for how they wanted to do it live, and they said, we're going to do that everywhere, and here it is. And we're doing it this way because it fits our aesthetic, our sound, what we're trying to accomplish with this, you know, piece of artwork that was American Idiot, the rock opera. So that makes sense.
That's a good point. Actually, you know, now that you mentioned that, it just dawned on me that it was probably like, hey, let's play places like the Cumberland County Civic Center, because we're kind of coming back from a big break. This is probably like the rooms we can fill, to holy shit, we could be doing like 7 nights here. I guess we should do Gillette Stadium on the second leg and sell that out. Like, they really, you know, there was money basically on the table between management and just satisfying the crowd that was willing to go see them. They were like, hey, like, we have actually graduated to stadiums. We didn't even know that was viable, but clearly it is. So let's go for it. So, and yeah, it's the same show, because they probably didn't even know they were going to be extending to that size.
True.
Capacity. They were really like, hey, for a mass date, let's just do the equivalent to the Worcester Centrum, you know. But oh shit, record selling like crazy. People want to see the show. We're not going to do 6 nights at the Centrum, so we'll just do 1 at Gillette Stadium for that matter. And you know, another thing I want to bring up on this band, but really just this style of music, is it's a really difficult dance, because punk is kind of associated with like youth. So like, how do you continue? You know, like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good point.
You kind of have to make a decision. And there's only so many bands that can do that in the punk scene. And you think about other bands, I'm a big Pearl Jam, like their music is timeless, because it's not specific to like being young. Like the songs can be young, old, middle, whatever. And they kind of carry on, kind of like a Tom Petty. But like, you know, Green Day or Blink-182 or The Offspring, like at some point you have to kind of make a decision, like, hey, like I'm in my 40s now or 50s, like, do I really want to, you know, continue to write about, you know, missing that high school sweetheart? Like, you have to, if you're going to write that song, you have to write it in a different style. So they did that. So
after American Idiot, they put out what, 21st Century Breakdown?
Yep.
And Revolution Radio. and Uno, Dos, and Tre, and Father of All, which Tom mentioned earlier. I like Father of All. I've listened to it a couple times. It's like 25 minutes long. It's pretty easily digestible. I need to listen to it again. It's been a while. I was surprised that I liked what I did, but they've not hit that note for me really in quite some time. I think I bought Uno, and I was just like, man, I like this. I think this should just be Uno, Dos, and Tre. Probably should have just been one record. That would have probably been better for them. But I get putting a bunch of stuff out. We always we're nerds. We want more stuff. Give us everything. So I can't be complaining when that does actually happen. But they continue to be a band. They continue to do the music thing for a lot of people. I think they're at a point now where they need to find their way again, which I think they can. I think they're definitely talented enough to do so. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's gonna hit the heights that it's hit because they've been fucking massive.
Yeah, and like I said, I really haven't checked out much after American Idiot. I think I've skimmed it, and I mean, it's just a little too polished for me. And you're hamstrung by your back catalog. We've said that with Eminem. We've said that with a number of different artists, and I would just choose to go back to the earlier stuff. But like I said, I'm a Green Day truther, so I'll defend the band as a whole. Realistically, I'll probably choose to listen to the old stuff.
Yeah, I could probably agree with that. I don't think I've checked out a whole lot. I think when Uno, Dos, Tre came out, I was down, and then Billy Joe went to rehab, and there was no promotion for the records. There was no tour. So I fell off just as much as the band fell off. It was almost like everything went on hiatus, and I was like, we were talking about shows we went to earlier. Like, you got to think, 2012 is when those 3 records came out. Revolution Radio is 2016. Father of All was 2020. Speaking of the shows we went to earlier, I'm checking out things like Amos Lee, Kings of Leon, completely different styles of music. So am I really checking out the newest Green Day record? It's not a disservice to the band. It's just, there's just so much out there that my association with Green Day and their height is Dookie to, I guess, American Idiot. And from there, I was kind of like, they did it. They could actually retire at American Idiot. And I'm happy they haven't. But at the same time, there's just so much out there. You almost get distracted if you're a true music lover. Are you really checking out the newest Green Day record when you're checking out, Frank Turner's new record? That's kind of in his peak currently. It's a hard thing to juggle.
Yep. No, they're a band that, they're going to polarize a lot of people. And we were just here to kind of talk about them on the whole and what they meant to us and where we felt they were in different, areas of their existence. And I don't think they're done. I definitely think that they've got another, American Idiot style turn in them. And hopefully I'm right. You never know.
Yeah, and it's a band that I'll always pay respect to. And like I said, if it wasn't them, would it have been someone else? For me personally, maybe. You know what I mean? I'm a music nerd. We dissect everything. We dissect Warped Tour compilations to, present day. We're digging into Wikipedia. We would have probably found our way, but this was like the game Genie.
Yeah.
Back in the day. We're all dating ourselves with that reference, but I think it expedited a world that I maybe would have found a few years later. And honestly, it might have not been until Blink-182. In 97, 98 with Dude Ranch. I think it was a 4-year, it expedited things for me for about 4 years, or by about 4 years.
Yep. No, good point. Yeah, so if you want to hear at least me, Tony, talk a little more about Green Day, I was on with the Playlist Wars guys, back, I think they dropped it in January, and I won. I did win that episode, so go back and listen to my playlist of 10 Green Day songs and listen to that episode. It was a lot of fun to record with those guys, and we've had Brian on here too, so hit us up on the socials at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you can find us, we're there, except for Truth Social. I don't think we've made it there yet. YouTube page, we got that going. We got Facebook, Podioslave Podcast, Gmail, PodioslavePodcast@gmail.com, and we've got some more stuff in the works for you guys. We've been grinding behind the scenes on a project that's going to drop in about a month that you guys are going to be pretty stoked on. So really happy to nerd out with you again, guys. And Twan, happy to have you back, man. And well, yeah, let's do this again next week.
I'm back, baby. Yeah, big project, and maybe, I'm not going to jinx it, but maybe an interview in the next couple weeks before that project drops. So keep your eyes and ears open, and we'll be back.
Yep, interviews, projects, nerdery, shows, deep dives. We're here for it. So we're going to continue on, and it's all good in good faith and good nerdery. So we are here, and we'll be here next week. So cheers, nerds.
Thanks, NPR Nate, for closing us out. Peace, podheads.
Cheers, nerds. Music is our niche.
Niche.